Judy Arman with you live from the College Football Hall of Fame. Of course, today brought to you, today's coverage presented by Neeson Fit Physical Therapy. They are changing the game by bridging the gap between rehab and fitness. Don't forget, it is Neeson Fit Physical Therapy. You can find out more information on Neeson Fit by visiting www.neesonfit.com today. You can call one of their two locations in downtown Huntsville or Madison to set up an initial evaluation. It is Neeson Fit Physical Therapy. And coming up today, here it is SEC Media Days, opening day coverage. Commissioner Greg Sankey, we are just less than 2 hours. 11:30 is when Greg Sankey is going to visit with the media, kick things off with the State of the SEC speech. And obviously, Drew, we expect that speech to be one of positive when it comes to the SEC, but the commissioners usually use this as a platform to launch certain topics. I imagine Greg Sankey will address something on NIL, name, image, and likeness, maybe the transfer portal, maybe conference realignment as well.
Yeah, I think conference realignment is going to be a huge part of it because about this time a year ago, it was really the last day, though, Scott. Going into the last day, we saw those two schools added in
Oklahoma and Texas.
Yeah, in the near future in just a couple of years. So that was the biggest headline of SEC Media Days, really. And now we've seen the Big Ten add from the Conference of Champions, as your boy likes to say, but USC and UCLA going over there. But we've talked about Notre Dame being the next big domino. Is the Big Ten going to be able to snag them and add their brand? Is Greg Sankey going to try to sneak in the back door and convince Notre Dame to come to the SEC? We just saw our good friend Brett Norsworthy from WHBQ 56 in Memphis. He's talked about that with us last week, that he would be after Notre Dame because of still their panache and because of getting into the state of Indiana. We were just there freezing our rear ends off in January at the national championship game in Indianapolis. So, again, Notre Dame is still a big brand, so that's going to be big. I know he's going to probably get a lot of questions about that, like, are you planning on adding any more teams sometime soon? Are we headed to super conferences? That's probably, to me, going to be the biggest questions he's asked. Probably NIL second, because what is his overall thoughts on NIL? Is it going to be regulated in his mind? Are they working on a plan for that to make it more of a streamlined situation? Because we just talked to Ron Higgins of Tiger Details, part of the Rivals Network, and he told us the truth. It's a free-for-all right now. Everybody's basically a free agent, and Brian Kelly had to reel Keyshawn Butte back in because, he was getting a lot of interest from some schools around the country, and he got him to stay at LSU.
So Greg Sankey, again, 11:45 to 12:15 is when we will hear from the commissioner, and you'll be able to hear that right here on 97.7 ESPN The Zone. Following Greg Sankey, Brian Kelly will come up, and you will be able to hear Brian Kelly at 12:35. Roughly 12:35. We say that because Brian Kelly has some appearances before that that he has to make before he meets with the main media congregation here inside the College Football Hall of Fame. And then we preview with Ron Higgins what we will hear from Brian Kelly. But coming up later this afternoon at 2:30 Eastern time, so 1:30 time, everybody back at home. And again, Brian Kelly will be in at 11:35. Commissioner Greg Sankey will be 10:45. I'm reading this off the sheets, and it's set for here inside the College Football Hall of Fame time. But for everybody back home, Greg Sankey will be at 10:45. Brian Kelly will come up at 11:35, and then Lane Kiffin will be 1:30. What do we think? What do we think? Usually when we think of Lane Kiffin, it's more brash. It's more talking. It's
Remember what happened last year, though? He could not get over the fact that Bryce Young had made $1 million in NIL.
But usually it's a subdue Lane Kiffin sometimes, and he just throws a comment out there. Do you think we'll see the same? A subdue Lane Kiffin with a comment here and a comment there?
I think he'll talk a lot about NIL. He'll probably get asked about it. He's been very forthcoming about it.
Yes.
About how you basically you're not putting the genie back in the bottle. You've got to be aggressive. And he'll be asked about being the Portal King because he has called himself the Portal King, Scott.
True.
Because he's added 17 guys. He's added some big time pieces. A lot of people are excited about Michael Trigg from USC, the tight end, who I really liked on film coming out of the state of Florida a couple of years ago. It didn't translate for him at USC, but Lane Kiffin's offensive mind, what he's been able to do at Ole Miss, the two-time SEC rushing champion, and now yet that backfield is going to be really different because of the transfers from TCU and from SMU. That's going to be really interesting because I really think that they've got a chance to still be a top 4 team in the West if they figure out the quarterback position. But I think the quarterback position is wide open. Jackson Dart, I'm not sure has been as quick a study as they had hoped, and I'm not saying that in a demeaning way. I'm just saying sometimes when you go from one system to another, it's not as seamless. And remember, Luke Altmaier has been in that system a little bit longer, and I truly believe, I truly believe that quarterback battle is wide open heading into fall camp for Ole Miss. And Zach Evans, the TCU running back, I really think he's somebody to watch. He's a 5-star. He had some issues in high school with maturity, but he was off to a great start last year at TCU, Scott, before he got hurt around the midpoint of the season. They had the coaching change. Gary Patterson now part of the staff for Coach Sark at Texas off the field. He decides to go into the portal. He goes to Ole Miss, and so he's a supreme talent. And so they had, Snoop Connor. They had a good backfield last year, and they had Matt Corral, who was one of the best athletes in the SEC at the quarterback position. But now it's going to be a little bit of a different offense, so it's going to be interesting to see. Though Charlie Weiss Jr. going to call the plays, and he worked at FAU with Lane. They had a lot of success, and Lane lost both his coordinators last year because DJ Durkin went to ruin his life and go work for Dirtneck over at Texas A&M. And so he left Ole Miss, and so it's going to be a different Ole Miss staff. You knew I was eventually going to throw something at A&M.
Well, by the way, Texas A&M is recruiting here in Atlanta. We saw the Brinks truck earlier.
Oh yeah, it drove right past us.
Right past us.
And then I was looking for the other truck right behind it that had FBI on it with a lie detector. I wanted to see that one. I was hoping that by Thursday the lie detector truck would pull up behind Dirtneck so he could have to tell the truth and the whole truth and nothing but the truth because he couldn't. But that would be funny.
So by the way, Texas A&M will be here on Thursday, so we got plenty of time to get things warmed up for them. Missouri and Eli Drinkwitz, they will close the party here inside the College Football Hall of Fame here on day one. And Eli Drinkwitz will meet with the big media congregation at 2:55. 2:55 today.
Yep.
Will be Eli Drinkwitz. And he got his first taste of SEC Media Days last year. Brian Kelly getting his first taste. Lane Kiffin, obviously a well-seasoned SEC Media Day coach. So he will be making his rounds today. So those are the 3 head coaches today. Really, not a lot of surprises, I don't think, will come out of today's session. I don't anticipate a lot of surprises today. I think it's just going to be one of those days where I do think Lane will make some headlines because he's going to say something. Like last year he made headlines just because he went up to everybody and asked about Bryce Young making $1 million and he couldn't believe it. And so now he's been on that NIL because Nick Saban had said
kick.
those comments coming
Right.
into SEC Media Day. So That's the
But
thing.
Lane
He
does
said
have some
so
ADD
much.
issues, kind of.
That
So
is true.
I'm always expecting something to happen
Will
with
he
Lane.
bring up his dog Juice?
Well, probably somebody will ask about that because I mean
Okay.
he does have quite a social media following
He's got
already.
almost 15,000 followers on Twitter.
Right.
Does Juice?
I mean, so I expect Lane to make most of the headlines. I am interested in hearing Brian Kelly because I thought, and that's what I like about Ron Higgins. I thought Ron was as forthcoming as you can
Yeah.
be, basically talking about Ed more concerned about flexing on the beach than actually coaching the team, and just asking to be fired after that abomination in the Rose Bowl last year. You remember when they came out and just got housed by Chip Kelly and UCLA, just looked awful.
Yeah.
And you basically knew already that the white flag was up, that LSU was not going to be any good, and that Ogeron, this was going to be it. Because, again, we know they were paying him a ton of money. But,
Yeah.
but LSU's got deep pockets, and they weren't going to allow Ogeron to continue to run the program into the ground. Who cares that he won a national title? He had no feel for being a head coach. Let's just call it what it is. He got lucky. He caught lightning in a bottle. Gene Chizik did the same thing. Neither of them were elite coaches, and you don't last long. That's what I've learned. I used to think if you won a national title, Scott, you had to call the guy elite. You don't, because sometimes you got a horseshoe up your rear end.
Jimbo.
And so Jimbo
Jimbo's
already
in that same
oh,
boat, though,
there's
right?
no
'Cause
question
he's
about
won
that.
one.
He's won one. Yeah, he's the most overrated and overpaid buffoon in the country. I mean, I just, I'm sorry. I know people want to prop him up to be something that he's not. He's not an elite coach. He's never been close to one. That's what I'm saying. I mean, if you look at what he doesn't get enough criticism for how he left Florida State. He ruined Florida State because he's a moron. Okay, that's what he did. And he'll ruin Texas A&M before it's over, and then he'll get paid for the rest of his life and have 5 ranches out there where he can go from one to the other, and he can recreate that show Yellowstone in real life. I mean, good Lord.
Let's get a break in. 8:45 on a Monday.
And I saw some of Yellowstone. Pretty intense show, by the way.
I've watched the whole. We'll talk Yellowstone.
Yeah.
We'll talk SEC media
When you
days
take a snake out of a cooler and just throw it at somebody.
You need to watch the entire series from season 1, the very first episode, go all the way through. You will love Yellowstone. I promise you.
I'm telling you.
It is a great
You
series.
can get shot with an automatic rifle and survive too in that kind of show.
Yes, you have. Yes, you have.
And I'm not talking about AR-15. We're not making any jokes about that with the Florida quarterback. He's distancing himself from that.
Yes, he came out yesterday.
Florida
and said
quarterback
he is
Anthony
distancing
Richardson.
himself. All right, let's get a break in, Chad. We kind of went on there, but we'll get a break in. SEC Media Day is coming up next. heard two of our big sponsors for this week. Our presenting sponsor today is Neeson Fit Physical Therapy. They got two locations, downtown Huntsville or Madison. You can find out more about Neeson Fit, www.neesonfit.com. They are changing the game. They are bridging the gap between rehab and fitness. They were created with you in mind, whether you're a competitive athlete, a weekend warrior, or even someone who wants to get into fitness. Neeson Fit is for you. And our good friend Arthur Seaton, the official transportation providers for Talking Ball here for SEC Media Days. Really, the four wheels that got us here were courtesy of Arthur Seaton and University Kia, the largest volume Kia dealer, the number one volume Kia dealer, the number one Kia dealer in the state of Alabama, not only right now but for the last decade. So.
Yep, allowing us to get here in an outstanding vehicle from University Kia.
We didn't Tokyo drift it.
We didn't Tokyo drift it, and we listened to hair metal, so we were good.
Oh, yes. We got it on. Oh, it's the Sirius XM station, Boneyard, or is it? No, what is it?
No, it's Hair Nation.
Hair Nation,
yeah,
yes.
I think it is.
Hair Nation.
I'm losing mine, but certainly I need to do what Brett Michaels does and just get extensions or something. I don't know. But anyway, we did hear.
Something I never thought I'd hear you say.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying he has to have done something, being 59, looking like he's 30. So we listened to look what the cat dragged in yesterday. So
we had a bunch of good ones.
Yeah, docking this morning.
Yes. So yes, thank you, Arthur Seaton, University Kia, for letting us enjoy a ride over here to Atlanta for SEC Media Days 2022. Now, coming up later this week, you and I will put our ballots in to predict who will come out on top in this year's SEC East, SEC West. Just so you know, this is kind of going all the way back to 2013. Since 2013, Drew, the projected champion in the SEC has come from the Yellowhammer State.
Yeah.
Every year since 2013. Auburn was your projected champion in 2015. I'm saying projected, not the winner.
The pick.
Projected champion since 2013 has come from the state of Alabama. Alabama in 13-14, Auburn in 15, Alabama 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21. I don't expect that to change in 2022. I think it's going to be safe to say the projected champion, when the votes are all tallied here among the media members, will be Alabama again in 2022.
Well, I mean, Alabama has the most star power returning. It's like when Jay Crane and Company joined us, and a great segment that was in hour one. He talked about it's Alabama, then Georgia, and then everybody else.
Right.
And Alabama has the Heisman Trophy winner, Bryce Young, best quarterback in the SEC returning. You have the best player in Jack linebacker / defensive end, just Mr. Everything, Will Anderson. You have Dallas Turner on the other side. You've got Henry To'oTo'o, who I still think is the most underrated guy for Alabama coming back. At Mike linebacker, and he's been a year in the system now. He should be totally comfortable. Jalen Moody at the will spot, with Deontay Lawson pushing. You've got a lot of experience back. DeMarco Helms, Jordan Battle at the safety spots. Malachi Moore and Brian Branch are battling each other.
Right.
But it's what you said at the beginning of the show, though. There are some slight questions. Kool-Aid McKinstry, first full year starting. Elijah Ricks, who I've heard is still behind physically.
Yeah.
They want to see how much – and he's got to, mentally learn the defense. It's not LSU's system. And so how quickly can he come along? Is Kyrie Jackson going to be able to hold him off? And, of course, the loser of that battle, are they going to be in the slot? So we'll see.
What about that inside linebacker spot? Is that?
Well, I think it's Moody. Moody will be at the will spot. Deontay Lawson's going to push.
Is that a question mark, though? Is that a concern?
No, not really, because we've seen Moody play at times, dating all the way back to 20 and last year. He's been in the program a long time, Scott. He's a fifth-year guy. And so he's a guy that's been around for a long time. He was Pete Golding's first recruit out of the state of South Carolina. Now, he was only a 3-star. He was kind of a late bloomer.
Right.
But he knows the defense. He's had to play in big games before. He's produced. And I think while he might not wow you physically as far as if you were at a combine, he's a good football player. And it's what I've talked about with Nick Saban, trust. He has to trust you as a player to know you're going to do your job every down. And that's why I think he had Moody come back out of the portal. Otherwise, he would have let Jalen Moody transfer. He didn't for a reason. And so he's going to be a senior next to Toa Toa because you got two experienced guys. And then you got two supreme talents in Will Anderson and Dallas Turner, who I think are freakazoids, who are just they're smart guys and really good football players, but they're just so talented. But now you've got the two guys inside are very experienced. This will be Toa Toa's 4th year starting in the SEC, Moody's first full year. But these are two dudes that inside that can do the job. You've got two great outside backers, not to mention the wild card, Chris Braswell, who had 5 sacks in a scrimmage in the spring for Alabama. I still think he's going to be maybe the breakout guy who's been waiting his turn. He'll play some inside and pass rush situations as well.
All right, we'll break down the 3 teams that are here today, LSU, Ole Miss, and Missouri, when our final 30 minutes.
Extra 30.
45 minutes, actually.
Before the
we
czar.
got 30 minutes. Yeah, we got 26 minutes.
Who is over here chomping at the bit, waiting to
he's inside
start.
the College Football Hall of Fame. We're inside the College Football Hall of Fame. It's day 1 of SEC Media Days on 97.7 ESPN The Zone. Our Extra 30 coming up next. Overtime. for Talking Ball here on 97.7 ESPN.
Dirt Neck's not
Zone.
good at overtime.
Day one of SEC Media Days here from the College Football Hall of Fame. And, of course,
he loses to LSU and things of that nature.
Our coverage today is brought to you by Neeson Fit Physical Therapy. www.neesonfit.com. That is where you can get you can find more about what they have to offer. We've told you about what they have to offer. They're created with you in mind. They're trying to bridge the gap between rehab and fitness. They're a true game changer. Their mission is to return you to the field or court, wherever it is that your PRs get broken and your victories are won. NeesonFit.com today, folks. Get a hold of them downtown Huntsville and Madison. Set up an initial evaluation. They're going to learn about your current symptoms and understand how your life is being affected. Not only will they formulate a specific treatment plan to address your concerns, they will help you reach your goals. It's Neeson Fit Physical Therapy. And again, we talked about the teams that are coming here today a little bit. You got Louisiana State University, and I just say it that way because that is how it is in the 2022 Football Media Guide is listed as Louisiana State University.
That's right.
So LSU, this is how Brian Kelly will get used to everything in 2022. Florida State in New Orleans is up first on September 4th, and then it's Southern Mississippi State, New Mexico, at Auburn. Those are the first 5 games out of the gate for Brian Kelly at LSU. Florida State, Southern Mississippi State, and New Mexico are all at home.
Right. And they're going to be wins. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I still think they're going to just thrash Florida State. I just don't know if Mike Norvell's going to be able to continue to try to fix that program after Dirt Neck ruined it. Because, I mean, I know Willie Taggart certainly struggled there.
Brian Kelly struggled with Florida State last year in that opener with Notre Dame.
He did, and I know this is another opener, but I still like LSU's team. You know, you heard Ron say Keyshawn Butte is healthy, motivated. He's got his NIL check, and so he didn't go to Alabama where everybody would have called him a pariah, even though that almost happened. But he stayed. I thought the 2 most significant things Brian Kelly did was find a way to keep Butte and then get Miles Brennan back. And that may be the 2 biggest keys to his first year at LSU. I'm anxious to hear from Elijah Drinkwitz because, again, he's been about 500 in his 2 years at Missouri, but they got Luther Burden III away from Georgia, away from Alabama. He had a huge spring. He's got a chance to be one of the top impact newcomers in the SEC at wide receiver. He's got a building block on defense, Chris Abrams-Drain from the state of Alabama, who's a slot corner last year. He had 3 picks. The one thing with Coach Drinkwitz, though, they haven't really been able to figure things out on defense. He's on his 3rd coordinator in 3 years. Though he has SEC experience, he was the linebackers coach at LSU last year. He's been at Miami. He's been at Louisiana Tech. In Blake Baker. So we'll see if he can kind of solve some of those riddles for Mizzou defensively. And then, of course, we know we talked about this Scott Connor-Bazelak, his quarterback who showed a lot of promise in 20.
He's gone.
He's gone to Indiana. He struggled a little bit last year. And Missouri was aggressive in the portal. They tried to get J.T. Daniels, the well-traveled one, to go there. He ended up choosing West Virginia, so he struck out on J.T. Daniels. He struck out on a couple other targets, including one of them that ended up out at LSU from Arizona State. So, again, Jaden Daniels. So we will find out what Coach Drinkwitz can do. But
they have an interesting schedule.
Yeah,
they
do.
Does Missouri.
They do have an interesting schedule. You're right about that.
They open up with Louisiana Tech.
And, see, that was supposed to be at Middle Tennessee, but they paid Middle Tennessee and I'm sure Jeff from the Borough is listening to this. They paid $800,000 to buy them out of that contract so they could get a Thursday night game at home against Louisiana Tech.
But on the schedule, it's not listed as home. At least in this media guide schedule, it's not listed as home. It may be at home.
It's the Louisiana Tech game is going to be at home. It's going to be because they're
September 1st
at Faro Field. on Thursday, September the 1st, and this was a strategic move by Elijah Drinkwitz and this Missouri athletic department because they did not want to have to travel in the first game to Middle Tennessee, and I think they wanted their own national kind of spotlight on that Thursday night.
Well, September 10th, they travel to Lawrence, Kansas, where they take on Kansas State. That's game number 2.
That's going to be a really interesting one, too, because they're going to be an underdog in that game. Last year, they early in the season, they struggled a little bit, and they lost a shootout in an intersectional matchup. Missouri did as they lost, 41-34 in Week 4 at Boston College, and I think that really kind of kept them from having a better year under Coach Drinkwitz because they lost a tough one at Kentucky by a touchdown, and they beat Southeast Missouri. But if they could have held on and won that game in Chestnut Hill, they would have been 3-1, and I think they could have been headed to the first winning season really for Elijah Drinkwitz because then, as you know, we are the home of Army football as well here at 97.7 The Zone. Army beats them in the bowl game and keeps Coach Drinkwitz and his squad from having a winning season.
Well, then it doesn't get any easier. Well, they have Abilene Christian on September 17th, but then the gauntlet is at Auburn, then they're home with Georgia, then they're at Florida, and then it's Vanderbilt at South Carolina, home of Kentucky, at Tennessee, and then New Mexico State and Arkansas are the remaining 2 for Eli Drinkwitz. Eli Drinkwitz, by the way, 5-5 in 2020. That was the COVID year. 3-5 in SEC play last year. Over/under on Eli Drinkwitz getting 3 or more wins in conference play this year in 2022.
Well, I think it's probably going to be under. I'm not sure how good they're going to be. I mean, I think Brody Cook is going to be the quarterback. He's been the backup for a couple years. He had a really good spring. It's still kind of a three-way dance there, though. And the wild card is Sam Horn, their blue-chip recruit. But, the Major League Draft started last night.
Yes.
And they're waiting that out because it's going to go on for the next couple of days. So he could end up being a baseball signee in the Major League Draft. But he also wants to play he signed at Missouri to play both football and baseball. So Sam Horn was one of the jewels of their recruiting class. And the one thing Coach Drinkwitz has been able to do, starting in year 1 when he got Ennis Rakestraw from the state of Texas, from corner that Alabama was recruiting, he's been able to recruit. He's had a couple of top 20 recruiting classes, Scott, but they just need to see more results. And I think people are now starting to understand what a special run Gary Pinkel had at Missouri. He retired, I think, after the 2015 season. And remember, in 13 and 14, they made back-to-back SEC championship game appearances when nobody saw that coming. But they were a great developmental program, and it's about fit. And we're gonna find out shortly if Elijah Drinkwitz is ultimately a fit for Missouri. I think I don't think he's on the hot seat going into this year. But certainly,
if he has 2 wins in conference play,
he needs to at least get to a bowl game. And if he does, I think, though I will say, Barry Odom was fired for less, and
he
what
took Missouri to 2.
And he accomplished more. No,
yes.
Not
he. I'm thinking Gary Pinkel.
Yeah,
I'm going all the way back to Pinkel.
But I will say Barry Odom won more games,
yeah.
and Barry Odom had a lot of talent. Pinkel left him a lot of talent in that program. Back in like 2018, I thought they had the most talented team that I saw inside Bryant-Denny Stadium against Alabama. But Barry Odom wasn't a great head coach, kind of like Ed Ogeron. He couldn't ever quite get the team to play consistently. So we'll see. But Drinkwitz is probably going to be given, another year. But I think if they struggle this season, he's going to be on the supreme hot seat going into year 4. So it's going to be interesting because, again, the climate has changed in the SEC. The pressure has changed. He's had some decent success. But, again, when you think about it, and again, by the time Barry Odom left, you're having to kind of clean up a mess. He's been doing that. I think the recruiting has been good. You just need to see better results on the field.
All right, so the third team then is Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin, their schedule. And we've talked a lot about this game. on the opposite side to open things up, but Ole Miss will open up with Troy at home,
John
followed
Summerall.
by Central Arkansas, and then they travel to Georgia Tech. Does Ole Miss.
Interesting intersectional game there. And Jeff Collins is under a lot of heat.
Oh, boy.
I mean,
he ever?
I mean, he lost a lot of talent into the transfer portal, especially Jahmyr Gibbs to Alabama. So, you know, and when you look at it, we talked about, Brady Cook being the QB potentially at Missouri. Lane's got to make the decision at quarterback for Ole Miss. Is it going to be Jackson Dart from USC, or is it going to be the Luke Altmaier, the returnee? I think it's going to be one of those two guys. Could he be rotating quarterbacks? But Jeff Collins has really got to get it turned around quickly when you talk about what the Yellow Jackets need to do. But that game for Lane Kiffin could be, I think, is a good matchup for them. I know he's got a lot of new pieces. He's trying to get the chemistry right with the 17 portal additions. But, you know, when you talk about, the additions to the running back room, like the Zach Evans, like the running back from Ulysses Bentley from SMU, I think Ole Miss has got a chance to be good. Mingo back at wide receiver.
Wow.
But Trigg at tight end could definitely be a great piece as well.
It is not unthinkable to think of October 15th when Auburn travels to Oxford, that Auburn will be going to Oxford and facing a 6-0 Ole Miss Rebel team right out of the gates, because Troy is a winnable ball game. Central Arkansas is a winnable ball game. Georgia Tech is winnable. Tulsa comes in on September 24th, and then Kentucky comes in on October 1st.
That's going to be a heck of a game. That could be two unbeaten teams playing.
Yep. And then after that, it's at Vanderbilt.
Mm-hmm.
So Ole Miss 5-1 or 6-0 when they face Auburn on October 15th, and then it's at LSU, at Texas A&M, Alabama, at Arkansas, and Mississippi State. So Ole Miss's schedule this year, front-loaded, really winnable ball games early for Lane Kiffin and company, ball games that they're going to have to earn in that back half.
Yeah, they are. They're going to have to earn them, no doubt about it. But I will say Lane Kiffin has a long memory. The biggest win of the Brian Harsin first year was at home against Ole Miss. Ole Miss, struggled on the road against Alabama and Auburn last year. So going to be interesting to see what happens with this Rebel team going for Lane Kiffin. But I know we need to take a break. When we come back, we're going to have a special guest join us to talk some Ole Miss Rebel football.
Let's get our final break in here from the College Football Hall of Fame SEC Media Days 2022, presented by Neeson Fit Physical Therapy. College Football Hall of Fame. It's SEC Media Days 2022 opening day here in Atlanta. Of course, today's coverage presented by Neeson Fit Physical Therapy, www.neesonfit.com. Get a hold of them today. We were talking about Lane Kiffin and the Ole Miss Rebels going to the break. We said, hey, you look at this schedule, the first half, Ole Miss definitely can make some hay. Maybe 5-1 when they get to that Auburn game, maybe 6-0 after that. They're going to have to work for it a little bit because some of the bigger names in the back half of that schedule.
Yeah, but who better to talk with than our great friend Richard Cross from SEC Network, ESPN, the Ole Miss Radio Network from Learfield, and, of course, the co-host of Super Talk Mississippi from 3 to 6 Central Time today. Richard wearing a bunch of hats, and he's just stopped to talk with us for a few minutes. Hey, man, what's going on?
There we go. Let's try that one. There we go. If I hit enough buttons, they're all going to work.
Just keep pressing buttons.
That's
that.
the way we do it.
Yeah,
I'm just going to press them all.
I'm just talking into the microphone. Don't make me press any buttons, guy. Yeah, good to be with you guys. Good to be back here for SEC Media Days. And, Scott, I mean, I think you nailed it just a second ago.
Yeah.
Ole Miss needed the schedule to be favorable in the front half when you're replacing Matt Corral at quarterback. Trying to figure out, is it going to be Jackson Dart? Is it going to be Luke Altmaier? Some new faces, new offensive coordinator in Charlie Weiss Jr. And so the fact that the front end of the schedule is a little more favorable, I think, is a good thing for them. You open up with Troy and you get UCA and the trip to Georgia Tech, and there are years where that might be a scarier game than it is. I mean, you still got to play. You got to show up and play well, and then finish it out with Tulsa, and then you kind of ease into Southeastern Conference play a little bit as well. And so there's an opportunity for a good start there. And if you look up and you're 5-1 or 6-0, yes, the second half is daunting, but hopefully you built some chemistry, you built some confidence, some continuity there as well, and you're ready for that second half.
And, Richard, is the quarterback battle wide open going into fall?
I mean, I guess. You're not going to get me – I'm going to be like Jell-O on that one. Try and stick a pin in Jell-O. I mean – Luke Altmaier did some good things in spring. He's got a better command of the offense, as you would expect, because he's been in it longer. I think the safer choice is probably Luke Altmaier because he's going to protect the football. And, look, he's a former four-star kid. There were a lot of people that wanted Luke Altmaier. He's a good player, good quarterback.
Yeah, Lane flipped him.
Who knows how he develops over the course of time. But Jackson Dart, there's a little more upside there. In terms of physical tools, arm strength. Now, neither of these guys have the arm talent that Matt Corral has, but
Right.
There weren't many people nationally that did a year ago or certainly would this year. If Jackson Dart can protect the football, I think he's got a really good chance to be the starter when it's all said and done. But the idea that just because Jackson Dart's there, Luke Altmaier is out of the picture, I think there's some faulty logic there.
Well,
Has Jackson Dart been able to come in and fit to the offense and understand what Lane Kiffin wants from him? I mean, because there was a lot made about the transfer. I mean,
Sure.
there was – I mean, if you followed social media, you knew how bad Lane Kiffin wanted Jackson Dart. Has he been able to fit that?
Well, and he wanted him because they needed depth at that position, right? Because after Matt Corral, it was Luke Altmaier and nobody else. Mm-hmm. With apologies to Kincaid Dent. That they had to have more depth in that room, and they got that in the offseason. And, Jackson Dart, highly thought-of guy. So to your question, I mean, really you've got the spring game to go on, and his numbers were terrible in the spring game. If you really kind of go back and you look at it, and I don't know how much you can honestly take away, because you've got basically no wide receivers, no running backs that are going to be starters that were playing in that game. He was bad in the first half, erratic, maybe a little too juiced up. That was his kind of hello world moment at Ole Miss, and it wasn't very good. Lane kind of pulled him aside during that game. They had, as Lane Kiffin goes, a long-ish conversation during the game, and he settled down a little bit and made some plays. And you saw some evidence. A lot of the shots that he took were deep shots, trying to hit guys deep. And I will tell you this, and this is not dodging your question, Drew. We were talking about it before we came on. Michael Trigg is. I mean, I don't care who the quarterback is. That's his guy because athletic ability, catch radius, athleticism, just all over the place. It's a big time.
Yeah, 3 touchdowns in the spring game in the Grove Bowl, and really looking forward to seeing him, what he can do in this offense. Because the one thing I love about Lane is not so much. He's great with in the middle of the fire with play calling, but building offenses around weapons. He does a great job of identifying guys and then figuring out a way to get them the ball. And I don't think that was happening with Trigg at Southern Cal, so it's going to happen here. And I still think he's going to be on that list of newcomers of the year in the league.
Well, and to your point about Lane building offense around playmakers, I mean, there's a track record of that, right? I mean, it's taken a former running back in Blake Sims and turning him into the single-season passing leader at Alabama. It's, a year later saying Calvin Ridley's the best player on the field and running the offense through Calvin Ridley. And, then going to FAU and, kind of playing 2 or 3 different styles over the course of 2 or 3 different years based on the skill set of his quarterback, and then obviously – kind of exploiting the abilities of Matt Corral to make that offense as successful as it's been. But the thing that stands out, so, I mean, for obvious reasons, you go to the quarterback conversation, right? And you talk about Jackson Dart and Luke Altmaier and who's it going to be. I think the more important question is what's the running game going to look like? Because you got a veteran offensive line coming back. You got some new backs in the backfield.
Zach Evans, yep.
And it's an offense that has led the SEC in rushing 2 years in a row. And I feel like we've gotten to the point now for consecutive years where you're like, hey, did you know Ole Miss led the league in rushing? They're like, really? I thought Lane Kiffin threw it all over the place. Like, no,
right.
No,
yeah, they do a lot, and in consecutive years have led the league in rushing. So we'll see.
Yeah, I guess as we're last couple of minutes with you, Richard Cross from Super Talk Mississippi. It's hard to predict what the ceiling is though for this Ole Miss team because of all the additions. I know it's difficult to put a number on it, but what is your feeling for it?
I almost would look at floor as opposed to ceiling because I don't know how this group will come together. And where we started was it's a difficult second half of the schedule, especially the last 5 games of the year. But based on the way the schedule starts, I mean, I think the floor is a bowl game, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if things go terribly wrong, they're probably a 6-win team. 8, 9. Probably for a ceiling. I mean, last year's 10 in the regular season, that's the most in school history. So predicting that seems like it might be a bit of a bad idea.
Well, 3 to 6 Central Time, Richard. We appreciate it.
Absolutely, guys.
All right, that's day 1 of SEC Media Days in the books for Talking Ball here on 97.7 ESPN The Zone, presented by Neeson Fit Physical Therapy. Make sure you join the Tom Abraham Show coming up here in just a couple minutes live from the College Football Hall of Fame in Atlanta. SEC Media Days 2022.